this end of the wormhole is currently stable.
And welcome to Into the Wormhole with Larissa and Lauren. I'm Larissa Maestro, your captain, and here with me is my number one,
Lauren Lowen.
Hey.
Hey, what's up? Trying to think of something funny. No,
we're still on the internet. We are eventually going to be going back into the We Own This Town studios, which is very exciting. But I just want to really quickly mention, hey, Lauren, did you hear that our theme song is different this week?
I did. I suddenly feel like really chill and relaxed and kind of like, yeah,
right?
I got my vibe on.
I like leaned back in my chair slightly. That is because we have a new Star Trek remix of our theme song. Our theme song this week was remixed by Paul Horton, aka No Stress. He just released an album through YK Records, which is the same sort of umbrella as We Own This Town, which produces our podcast. And I approached him and was like, do you want to remix our theme song for our remix series? And he was like, yes. And then he sent this and I was like, yes.
Thank you, Paul. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. It's so awesome. And we love it so much. We are going to have him on the show soon as a guest. He also loves Star Trek and actually has read some of the novels. And I'm interested to see what he has to say about the novels, actually, because we have yet to talk about anything other than the TV shows and the movies.
And I've never read the books. I've never read the comic books. I'm a visual media person when it comes to Star Trek. And so you guys have roped me into reading a Star Trek book called Imzadi. And I looked at the cover and I was like, sold. Looks like there's some time travel. We have double Riker fun, maybe. Like, I'm looking forward to it. I just want one of those classic romance novels covers, you know, where it's always like the woman and she has like one part of her dress is hanging off her shoulder. And yeah, maybe I'll illustrate that. I don't know.
Perfect. It's wonderful. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Paul Horton, aka No Stress, for remixing our theme song. Please go find them on Instagram. He's on Instagram at no.s.t.r.e.s.s.
Wait, that handle's kind of giving me stress, even though it's supposed to be no stress.
And his website is www.no-stress.me. So check him out. His album is super cool. Prelude number 1 is very fun. Highly recommend, highly enjoy. So this week is a Star Trek remix episode. If you missed that somehow in the ramblings that we just did. And this time we're going to be talking about the 2 episodes that take on AI rights in these series. And that are the most similar in that there is a trial.
Yes.
Deciding the rights of a crew member who is artificial intelligence. So those 2 episodes are obviously Measure of a Man, TNG, one of the best episodes of Next Generation.
And I would say even Star Trek in general, a lot of people would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And surprisingly, it's season 2, episode 9, Measure of a Man. And then the season 7 Voyager episode, Author, which is where the EMH ends up on trial, deciding whether he has rights as a person under the Federation. We're gonna go ahead and
copyright laws, which I like.
Right,
it's a very specific thing.
I know. It is so specific. It's like this is what takes you to like intellectual property
Right,
is
yeah.
what ends up getting us to actual human rights.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like we're probably going to talk about The Measure of a Man first. I mean,
we can do like a short recap of each episode, but like I'm really interested in comparing how the writers get us to the place where we're actually talking about the rights of the person, because
Yes.
they're very, very different.
yes.
Or the trajectories are different, but we end up sort of in similar places by the end of the episode.
I think this is really interesting. Let's see. Have we done 2 of these? I believe we did Naked Time, Naked Now, and then we did the triple episodes
Triples.
with the
Yeah.
TOS and Deep Space Nine. And those, we really did have to get into the specifics of like, this is what happens in this episode, and then this is what happens, because those were so connected in sort of the tone and the theme. And yeah, what's interesting about these is that they're very different episodes, and they do have that in common. So this is kind of I think going to be a fun remix for us to do, because it does differ in the previous type of remixes we've addressed. But so you're right, like it's not so much about recapping each one, but kind of just getting into how those two things, like those 2 episodes, like factor in the whole trial and AI rights.
Right. Because this is not a direct remake in the way that Naked Time and Naked Now are.
Yeah.
Like that's like shot for shot almost. Specifically a remake of an episode. This like the concept is what's being reused. And I think the first thing that I'm really interested in, as far as like the different ways that this concept is approached, is where these episodes are in the series.
I
that they're
agree.
in. Yeah, I am fascinated. This is very interesting. So Measure of a Man is in the second out of 7 seasons of TNG. And we have only known, and it's in the beginning of the season too. It's the 9th episode of the season. So we've only known Data for 1 season. And as we all know, Data in season 1 of TNG is not quite Data yet. Spiner didn't know what he was doing with the character. The writers didn't know what they were doing with this character.
They were kind of testing things out. You know, it's like they were figuring out Data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Voyager episode is literally at the end of the final season of the show. So we have just spent 7 years getting to know the character of the EMH. And it's really interesting to be using this concept sort of for Data to establish him as a character, and for the Doctor to use this concept to like give him a special present.
Yeah,
you know?
it's almost like to graduate him.
Right. Because at this point in the series, in Voyager, we are starting to wrap up character stories. So I think in a couple episodes, we're about to say goodbye to Neelix and wrap his story up. We're, until it's the very last episode when we get the Torres Paris baby. We get they're trying to very quickly shove all of this.
Yeah. They're like experimenting with 7 dating, but then they're like, wait, no.
Yeah.
Forget that.
We're trying to at this point, we have relationships with these characters is what I mean.
Yes.
And they're trying to wrap all these stories. They're trying to end the story of Voyager right now. So the other thing that's different about these 2 episodes for me is that one of them, the entire focus of the episode is the trial.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, Measure of a Man, there's no other story.
Yeah.
Happening. There's no B story. Unless the B story is just that Philippe Lavoie and Jean-Luc Picard dated at some point, we think.
Yeah, and I think that's more of just to give some meat on the bone of the story. It just makes things
set up a
interesting, and it
relationship.
establishes some nice little character touches.
P.S. I love it. I love it a lot. But the Voyager episode, Author, we have a lot of other plot going on.
Oh, yeah.
With other characters. So it is not just the Doctor's story. The crew are talking to friends and family from home the whole time. We're talking, like, we have a fucking scene where Harry's talking to his parents and his mom's like, I'm gonna write a letter to your captain. We have a scene where B'Elanna finally talks to her father again for the first time since he like abandoned their family. There's a lot of like meaty. That whole storyline with Seven like being lonely, realizing that she's like feeling like sad about not having family, and then calling her aunt.
There's a lot, like in a way that even the trial in that episode, it feels like it's, I don't want to say secondary, but in a way it almost feels like that's the B story, or that's the main thrust of it, is more of the doctor and how he's kind of offended his friends and coming to that conclusion. And then it's like, oh, there's this trial thing. We're going to kind of decide what your rights are and what you are. So it's weird. It's interesting.
By
the way, we recently did Larissa's favorite Asians episode. I would like to honorable mention put Harry's parents on that list.
Yes. Yep. They're great. That is such an Asian mom thing.
And I love when he's like, are they going to give you a promotion? And I just heard Larissa be, what's with not giving the Asians the promotion?
For fuck's sake.
For fuck's sake.
I was like, promote Hoshi Sato.
I hear you, Mr. Kim. Larissa's on the same page. When are they going to give you a promotion?
I love that little look that Harry and Seven exchange when his mom is like, when are they going to promote you? It's almost like yes, we know. It's like the writers being like, we know, we understand. It is awkward that he is still an ensign and he is like a total grown ass adult. Like, he's basically a commander at this point. So the amount of time spent on the trials themselves is very different.
Yes.
We did talk about, we chose Measure of a Man when we did our crossover episode with Your Inner Child is an Idiot, because this episode is like one of the best episodes of TNG. I mean, it is. It's watching it again. I can watch this episode over and over and over again. It is always compelling. It is always good. The acting is great. Like the great thing about this is that because it's set up to be so early in the series, you get to see those moments where someone like Picard, who has had data on his crew for a year now, is still going through a process where he himself has to reevaluate what he thinks data is.
Yes.
And what his relationship is to data. That conversation that they have in his ready room where data asks that question about why doesn't everyone have a visor?
Yes. Oh my God.
I mean, that makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it. It's so powerful.
And I know, and what's great is that like Picard doesn't have a response. He just looks away and he like gets the point Data is making.
Yeah.
Real quick,
exactly.
Before we go down the wormhole anymore. Hey, did I use the title into the word? Sorry. I'm trying to do a bad joke. Anyways, before we, I feel like author, which is the Voyager episode, we probably need to refresh people's minds, because if you asked me before watching this what author was, I'm like, yeah, I've seen it a long time ago. Measure of a Man. Larissa's right. We talked about it not that long ago. I feel like this is an episode we really don't have to recap. It's like, you should know this episode, but the very basics of it is researcher and scientist Maddox comes to take Data away and pull them apart in the name of research. Data doesn't want to, and therefore it sparks a trial about what are Data's rights. Does he have the right to retire and say no and refuse? Or is he a piece of property? Is he just a toaster on wheels, as they put it, and should be fine? Picard's defending Data because this JAG office in space is still being set up. Riker, as second highest in command, has to prove, the, what am I thinking of? Not the defense. What's the opposite of defense?
Prosecution.
He's the offensive line. Yeah, and so they go toe to toe, and we sit on the edge of our seat, biting our nails, wondering, oh God, are they gonna take Data away?
Yep.
Spoilers, Data's okay.
And it's a great teleplay. It is so beautifully written.
Can we talk about that? Did you read up on the teleplay?
I didn't.
First of all, it's pretty awesome because it is a woman writer.
Oh yeah, that's right. We did talk about that.
Here's the amazing thing, though. It was her first TV credit.
Oh,
Like she was a lawyer, which explains a lot of this. That was her inspiration. But she sent it in.
That's amazing.
And this is her first writing credit, and it won like this award, and obviously now it's like on all these lists again as far as like one of the top TNG episodes, one of the top Star Trek episode. It's like, oh my God, she was, as a writer, she was just a baby, and I just think that's so cool.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I fucking love that. This episode is so good.
Yeah.
Like every detail of the writing of this script is so perfect. The entire conversation between Picard and Guinan when he's preparing to cross. That
might be for me like the most iconic Guinan Picard conversation.
Yes.
Because
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I love that because I've mentioned this before when we did the crossover, but especially how Guinan gets Picard to the conclusion. She basically, talks about there's always been disposable people, and think about it, a whole race of Data is like, that can do all the jobs nobody wants, and nobody has to handle their welfare. And Picard's like, you're talking about slavery. She's like, that seems a little harsh. And he's like, no, I think you're right. And so Guinan has this wonderful way of like getting people to that conclusion. And for me, that is such an iconic conversation and moment where Guinan's she's Guinan-ing the Guinan out of that.
Yes, absolutely. She leads people. Yeah. She guides people to the conclusion instead of telling them what to do. She helps them to arrive there on their own. And it's a very short conversation. It's a very short scene, but it is so powerful. Every scene in this episode is important.
This episode is a well-oiled machine.
Absolutely. The fact that very specifically the character of Bruce Maddox never refers to Data as he, always as it. That's big.
Yes, that's huge.
There is nothing wrong with this episode. This episode is amazing.
I do feel like if I was Picard, though, like, and he started talking that way, I'd be like, excuse me, stop that. Call him he. Like,
right. Like,
but
how
anyways,
fucking dare you? That's my friend. How dare you? The whole thing about bringing back the portrait of Tasha, like his medals and the books and all the things, all the little details that are now like Data canon, that are now like, turning him off, taking off his arm, having him bend a piece of like really crazy metal or whatever, all these things that are now like, this episode establishes the Data that we know pretty much. That this is Data.
Yes. I think you said it really good about the position of the episodes in their respective series. This like kind of sets up and defines Data for the rest of Star Trek, whereas the EMH, it kind of wraps it up and it's more like a graduation or a send off with him and what he's become. And this is more about the potential and the journey Data is going to start in his TNG storylines. His journey throughout the 7 years.
Yeah, and so the EMH episode, author, really, really fast recap on that. The Doctor writes a holonovel that is loosely based on his experiences on Voyager, which is his whole waking life.
Yeah, it's what he knows.
It's all he knows. He came into existence the first time someone summoned him in sickbay. When Voyager was first leaving, or was first like in need of a medic after their doctor died, and takes you through his entire experience. So like what happens is he uses the physical parameters of the crew to create the characters in his holonovel. He loosely bases them on him, and they're all pretty awful. I wrote in my notes, this is the closest that Voyager gets to Mirror Universe.
Right?
Where everyone's just evil.
And we do have facial hair.
We have, yes.
Other Tom has a mustache, creepy mustache.
Yep.
And we
Chakotay
have
has a ponytail.
evil Tuvok. Oh, who has the ponytail?
Chakotay.
Oh, that's right. It's like oh God, and the tattoo.
I know, but he's Bajoran too.
Yes. And it's played for laughs. Like
Yeah. But somebody gets a hold of it and sees it, and the whole crew is very offended by their depictions in this holonovel. The Doctor is also in talks to have it published with a publisher back on Earth, and he's using his like credits, his communication credits, to talk to this publisher about this holonovel. In the meantime, everyone else is like having conversations with their friends and family from home, and blah blah blah. All those stories are happening at the same time. So they get to a point where like they come to an understanding, I guess, about the holonovel. Tom plays a very rude joke on the Doctor where he goes in and like changes everything and makes it even worse in the holonovel. And then the Doctor learns his lesson, quote unquote, and then like decides to edit it for the sake of the crew. Then he calls his publisher and is like, I want to edit it. And he's like, sorry, I already released it because you have no rights because you're a hologram. So then Janeway's like, nope, this is, we're not going to do this. We're going to fight it. They try to figure out how to get him the rights to his intellectual property. And this turns into a trial about whether he actually has human rights, because the whole point is he's not a person, so he can't have rights to the thing he created.
Yeah, there's no intellectual property. There's no copyright. Like,
right,
you
because
can't have the copyright, because it's like if you ask a computer, what are those programs where you can like literally ask a computer, you can like plug in a few things and it'll write a story for you.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what.
Yeah, but the idea of it's like, well, it's just like if you had a randomly generated, content by a computer or AI, like it wouldn't own it.
Yeah, and they
or like
basically
a
like they do the same. Yeah, they do the same thing as they did with Data, where they call him a toaster. They compare him to a replicator. They say disparaging things about him, basically. And then Janeway realizes that this is about more than intellectual property, and they end up calling the whole crew as character witnesses. And there's a montage of the whole crew being like, the Doctor is my friend. The Doctor disobeyed a direct order, and how could he do that if he was programmed to be blah blah blah. So like, and then they're like, and then the judge is like, I'm not going to say you're a person, but I am going to give you control over your intellectual property.
But you are an artist.
You're an artist, but maybe not a person. We're not sure yet. There's no it's not like there's been a trial yet already where where somebody established that artificial intelligence is actually sentient, and there's no precedent for this.
I know, and that's actually one of the biggest things is that
problems. Yeah,
this whole time I'm thinking like, why wouldn't they just reference like the Data
They
trial?
don't even
Nobody
mention
even
it.
mentions it. Like, there's
so that's one of my problems. One of my other problems is no one in the crew plays this game or plays this holonovel and thinks, oh my God, this is how the Doctor sees us. We need to apologize to him. No one's like that. Like, no one's like, wow. Like, Janeway gets to a point where she says it's almost like you feel oppressed, and then we never talk about it. Then we never, because like we've established, yes, the Doctor is an equal, but not really.
Well, she makes the point. They ask, because in the story, his holo emitter is like a huge backpack. It's like a hiking backpack, and it's really heavy. And burdensome, and they're like, what the hell is up with that in the book after they've all played it.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I wanted the player to, or the reader to really feel the weight of it,
Yeah.
And Janeway's like, well, it gives you so much freedom. It liberates you. You can move anywhere. And he says sometimes it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I was thinking about, in a way, this is a very I wonder if people have written about this episode about just with anything when it comes to othering. And
Yes.
it's true. Like things like that. It's like a wheelchair. A wheelchair gives a lot of freedom to people who are differently abled in that way. But it is like, in a way, a visual and a cue, maybe a social cue that like, I'm different. I'm hoping I'm saying
Yes.
like, I don't want to like creep into non-PC world here.
No,
but you know what I mean? It's like
ableism.
Yeah,
there
is. Yeah, but like basically there are things that you can have that help you, or aid you in some way.
But they also other you.
But it's not just limited to like people who are differently abled. It could be, the skin color. It could be wearing a head covering if you're a certain religion. Like, there's things that sometimes make you feel like you are being othered because people see you and then they put you in this other category. Yeah. And so so I thought that was a very interesting point about that, where he says that there's almost like there's kind of a price to pay for him. There's still like an emotional.
I wish they had actually talked about it. They mention it, but like if his whole point, the whole reason for this holonovel was for he talks about this for the liberation of the Mark Ones that he knows are basically enslaved right now, right? Which we found out when he goes to like save Dr. Zimmerman.
Okay,
that,
I was
like,
going to ask, is that
all the Mark
what
One
they're talking
holograms
about?
are like are doing hazardous work,
And that's because
basically.
they're considered obsolete. Like there's been better technology.
They're considered obsolete as far as medical programs,
Okay,
but because they're still useful as far as like they can do hazardous things and nobody's worried about them. Nobody cares about them. So this is basically like what Guinan was talking about.
yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
I have a problem with these episodes and how
happening.
they relate to each other since they're in the same world too.
Yes. It seems really fucked up that all of this is happening after the trial and measure of a man is supposed to set a precedent.
Yeah.
It is difficult for me to believe that in the 24th century, in the future, that there would be people that would look at a trial like that and not think that that decision would apply to any artificial intelligence and not only androids
Of a sophisticated caliber. Like,
yeah,
there was that one episode where that crazy hologram like freeze. He like destroys the ship and he liberates the holograms, and they have like 40 subroutines, and they're just like, please state the nature. And Torres is like, you idiot. Like you
we're
saved
not
a coffee
that kind
maker,
of holograms.
basically.
Yeah.
But that certain AI of a certain level of sophistication and awareness, like it would apply to them.
It's that tipping point of sentience.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Of self-awareness. Yeah.
This might be a little bit of a side rant, but I guess I found that confusing because I couldn't remember where that had come into play. The all those holograms doing the dirty work. But part of me also was like, wouldn't they, it's like when you just upgrade your technology, you just upgrade it. It's not like we have people who are still, I was going to say still using AOL, but I have family members who are. But it's not like the technology from 20 years ago. We're not like, what are we going to do with these things? It's just, yeah. So it's weird to think that like with the holograms, they are in this world, they are seen just as technology, just as a computer program. Yeah. So why would it be like, oh, what should we do with these holograms? I guess we'll mine them. It's like, why don't you just upgrade them to, what's his name? Andy Dick. And then, and then you would just have new holograms for like that are more basic for that.
We don't really understand how this technology works. I don't understand how this works. It seems like each hologram is its own physical thing instead of a piece of software. You know, like we're not clear. We're not clear on how all of that works. It's frustrating that it does seem like there's no connection at all.
It's almost like these writers weren't in the same room and they were just trying to build off of,
Well, it's almost like they didn't even watch that episode. It's almost like they didn't even consider it, and they were just like, ooh, it almost feels like this is they were like, ooh, I've got an idea. What if we're, and they didn't think, oh, we've done this before.
Or like the long term. Yeah.
Or like that the other episode might have relevance to this one.
I guess one thing that I always also found kind of weird is that like the fact that the EMH did get eventually so much development as a individual,
Mm-hmm.
and self-awareness. And I know there's probably a simpler reason, but how do I put this? He has so much emotion. So they could do that for a hologram, but they could never do that for data. That was just like one of those weird thoughts. I was like,
Yeah.
Although they did make an emotion chip, obviously.
Yeah. It really is the emotional aspect of the character that allows them to develop him personally and individually.
And I know,
in a human way.
I know EMH is like based off of Zimmerman as a template. It's just like, sorry, random thought.
Yeah. So really quickly, like going back to like my whole problem with the fact that the crew is just mad that they look bad in this holonovel, and they're not thinking about like maybe why the EMH has depicted them in these ways, and that maybe there are some kernels of truth in the terrible behavior that they're seeing in these characters. Like a lot of these things have kind of happened to the Doctor over the course of the last 7 years. He has been treated like he's not a person by this crew. Even though they did come around and he is a part of the crew now, like these are things that actually happened, like being called a tool, like they were going to restart his program.
Yeah.
And to him, like, that is death.
In some cases.
Yes, exactly. So like they killed him, like these are legit things that happened. Like there's B'Elanna calling him a tool. Like you're just like this hyper spanner. Like those are things that like have happened, that he's been told that he's just a tool and he's not an actual living thing. So and then again, the character of Seven being the only character in the, or like 3 of 9 or whatever her name is in the
2 of 3, I think.
Something is the only character that protects him, that stands up for him.
She's a fellow, yeah.
Yes, because they do have a relationship, a strong friendship out, in the real world, in which she has stood up for him. Like she's the one that stood up for him when Janeway deleted those memories of him having to sacrifice the life of one of his crewmates, and then he like had an existential crisis about it. I forget what that episode is called, but that's an excellent episode.
It's a wonderful,
And Seven is the one that goes to Janeway and she's like, "This is fucked up, and you should not be making this decision for him. It's not up to you." And then Janeway's like, "But he's a hologram," and Seven's like, "But really? I thought he was a member of your crew." So like these things are real, but like when the crew walks through this holonovel, what they see is like, oh, people are going to think we're awful, instead of like, oh my God, I kind of did do that to him, didn't I?
Yeah. Like, it's funny because I don't think the
writers were thinking about it that way.
And this might be the problem that this episode has, where maybe it's trying to do a few too many things.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of a comedy, but he wants to talk about the book aspect. Like, yes, he basically has loosely, like, again, it's Tom, but he's a mustache or something like that. Like someone's hair color is different. But he is doing things that are just pure sensationalism. Like Tom is cheating on his wife, like, and is not a very savvy person. Janeway shoots one of her own crew members.
Yeah.
So, so there are things that they are, I think, and I'm not saying this goes against what you're saying. It's more of just like, to some degree, he goes so far. There is so much for the shock value. There is so much sensationalism at their expense. There's no reason why Tom has to cheat on his wife in order to liberate or inspire liberation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I will say Seven, like, it is true that Seven's his friend, but I saw it as Seven was actually being objectified by, to some degree, because she has like the jewelry and, her hair is like down, more flowy. Like, to me, she was written more, that echoed like his, the fact that he has a crush on her, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything is exactly like you said, sensationalized. I do agree that like Seven is on many levels, and especially in Tom's rewrite, very much objectified.
Oh, yes. And I feel like Tom's version, even though you're right, it's mean, is to come across like how, So,
but
I'm
like,
sorry.
but I guess what I'm saying is that for in that case, like Tom is missing the point to me, because all of these, even though these are exaggerations, and this is a very sensational story, and he's like expanding everything to be like, drama, there are kernels of truth everywhere. So, for example, Janeway wouldn't shoot one of her own crew in order to manipulate the Doctor into caring for one person over another, right?
Although that wouldn't happen. She did kill Tuvix. And she did. So I mean, not like that.
That's a good, but that's an example, though. That's an example, though, of in the past, the Doctor has been forced to provide care in ways that he would not recommend or would not choose to do. In ways that he would not have been manipulated if he had been a human crew member as opposed to a holographic crew member. So that has not the specifics of it with Janeway killing someone, but he has been bullied by crew members to do specific things because he's a hologram. And that is the truth. He has been name called by crewmates because he's a hologram. He has been told he's not a person. He has been told that expanding his program is unnecessary. So like all of these things come from places of truth. And for me, I think you're right that this episode is trying to do too many things, but I would have loved if that was the focus of this episode. If it was like the crew being like, fuck, like, you know what? Like, you're right. Like, we treated you like shit. And like, if the trial, like the way that it does in Measure of a Man, where the trial itself is what forces the crew to rethink how they see this artificial intelligence, how they see data. If this trial had made the crew of Voyager rethink how they really feel about the Doctor and how their actions show the Doctor how they feel about him.
Or in a way,
really rethinked those,
Yeah. In a way, it's almost like it's the only thing that makes this a remix and how it ties in Measure of a Man. But I don't think in the end you actually need the trial. Like, I think they wanted to have that somewhere, and this is how they got it. But it almost feels like, it's like, okay, well, how does this trial even start? Oh, copyright. Okay, he's ready. It almost feels like they wanted to get there and they weren't sure. But yeah, like to some degree, I don't think you even need that part of the story. It could have standed on just the fact that it reaches this like, we're pissed off at you for writing this book, and then he's kind of like, okay, maybe this wasn't the most tactful thing, but like you said, expressing some of these, and then it's like, oh, and even without the trial, like them coming to grips with like what is the rights.
Yeah.
I mean, because now I think about
even
it,
then,
like yeah, exactly, like less about a trial where it's about rights and more legal, but more about the philosophical part of it.
Yes, absolutely. And even then they could bring up like you know what? I remember that there was actually a trial on the Enterprise where like they could even talk, just even like say like this was a thing, and they decided that like yes, he was sentient and that he could dictate what he wanted to do with his own life. He could make his own choices, and like could that not apply here? Like they don't even have to have a Zoom trial, a video chat trial in order to get to that place. You know, they could like, I mean, I even wrote in my fucking notes, after 7 years, the crew finally literally walks in the doctor's shoes. And they still don't completely arrive.
There's,
you know?
We're just talking about that great Picard scene where, you know, Data says like, you know, Geordi's eyes are superior. Yeah. So again, like, why doesn't every crew member have them? And Picard just gets it. Yeah. There's, you know, that they almost attempt that. Aha. And then, yeah, Janeway's like, well, it sounds like you feel oppressed. And he's like, yes.
Yeah. And she's like, but you've always been like, but then she does the thing that, you know, like that we see a lot in our culture now where she's like, but you've always been a member of the crew. You've always been equal.
And not like, well, tell me more why you feel that way.
Exactly. Yeah. And like erasing his feelings basically by just being like, but you've always been equal, which is not true, which is 100% not true.
Yeah, it's almost like what this episode could have been is just them all getting pissed, because it really does show them in a bad light. And they're worried that people will take this as reality about what's going on the ship.
And they're also about to be home. They're about to.
Yeah. So they're like, oh my God. Yeah. So it almost feels like that would be the big revelation, is that they finally kind of realize that where the doctor's coming from and resolving that and having a good friend moment, as Larissa always says. Yeah. But instead it rolls into the trial. And again, like you said, it's almost like, well, we're not sure about you as a person, but we're going to talk about your artist rights.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can keep the rights to your intellectual property. I mean, it is, you're right. It would have been way more interesting to see some more character stuff at the end. Some more like, you know, like I don't care really what an old Federation white dude has to say about the doctor. I want to hear what my other friends have to say about the doctor. You know, like I want to see like my friends, the crew of Voyager, I want to see them have a moment. Like, I don't give a shit about this judge that we have no relationship with, and we don't care about him at all, and he doesn't even have a name. Like, who cares what he thinks? I want to know what Janeway thinks. I want to know if she watched that and then was like, shit, you know what, Doctor, you're fucking right. You're right. I thought that I had gotten to a place where like I had changed, but when I experienced your holonovel, I realized that I have more work to do. And that's a message that like currently we need to be hearing, you know, where people are like, because there's so many people out there that are like, I'm anti-racist, or like, I'm a feminist, and like, so I can never do anything wrong. And that's not true. It's a process. The process of looking at a marginalized group as human, when you've been taught for generations that they're not, is a process that takes time. And we could have received that a little bit of education about that from this episode, but we don't really. They're just like, but we did a good job for you already. We're so nice to you most of the time already, and you were just so mean to us with the way that you wrote our characters, and you got to fix it. Like it like could have been beautiful. Everyone except, of course, for Neelix, who gets it. Right. Neelix gets it.
Well, Neelix is like, Neelix maybe just be a little nicer, and you can still have the kernel of truth you're trying to write.
Yeah. Like he still understands. He still fucking gets it, as he always does, because he is a caring person.
It's almost like there's Like again, a few too many things going on in the episode.
Yeah.
When you really start to look at it, I mean, actually, I have to admit, like, I had fun watching it. But it's
I'm not. I mean, this is criticism.
Yes, we are analyzing this and comparing it to one of the most successful episodes in Star Trek history.
Right. I very much enjoyed watching this episode. I very much enjoy watching Voyager. I just feel like this because I watched them in chronological order. So if you watch this episode in chronological order as far as like you're watching Voyager, it's like, oh, yeah, this is great. But if you watch this episode right after Measure of a Man, I mean, the nuance, it's incomparable.
I just can't get past the point where I'm like, I'm sure this trial made huge historical waves in law. Like, that's for me, it was just continuity of like, if Data went through this years before, surely it would be, somewhat talked about in regards to the defense or the prosecution.
Surely Tuvok would have brought this up, right? You would think. I mean, Tuvok is his defense, or is like basically they show Tuvok as defending him.
Yes.
And Tuvok doesn't bring up this trial, Data's trial. Tuvok, of all people, Tuvok, who knows all the things, who is very old and has been who was probably around in Starfleet at the time that it happened. Like, what the fuck?
I do like it when they're like, oh, your logic is flawed, and he raises an eyebrow to be like, oh, what did you just say?
You did not just say that to me.
Just say, yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah, this episode, because the part with the novel and everyone being a horrible version of themselves for the sake of the story, that could have been a story. Or like just a hologram program or a book where they're like, this is embarrassing, and it'd just be a silly episode about them, and then the EMH coming to a place of understanding where the EMH realizes like the flaws and just I will take this physical parameters and add a mustache. That could have been an episode. The trial, however they got to it, AI rights, cool. Maybe that's the episode. That's an idea right there.
Mm-hmm.
The version we're talking about, where yes, you have this, and he's going to get it published. Take out the publisher, and before he even approaches the publisher, maybe he's got the chip that's last in line, and it's about them coming to terms with the EMH and how he feels, and them hashing it out and having good friend moment.
Yeah,
that could have been that, but.
And actually addressing
we go from
this possibility of like, or addressing the whole like thing that they kind of like touch on, which is like oppression and our relationship to other people's oppression. But yeah.
And it gets kind of like heavy very fast. It's almost like the episode's not quite committed to any one element. It's not quite committed to the whole liberation thing, and it's not quite committed to the AI thing. Yeah. And then at the end, when they show all the EMHs that are like, tell the guy to put on program 642, it's the other EMHs that are, because the program has been leaked ahead of time because the publisher thought EMH had no rights. So of course, hundreds and thousands of people are being exposed to it. And it's supposed to be like, see, the doctor has already influenced this.
See, and I will say that I did like that, because we talk a lot about how the ends of Star Trek episodes are just like, and everything's fine. And this was like, there's more work to do. I like that.
Yeah.
I just didn't think that they raised the stakes as high as they could have, especially when it comes to like the crew realizing that they have been part of the problem.
Yeah, they kind of like drop that. It's just like a 5-minute thing. It's almost like they wanted to. Again, I think this is like they needed to get to the trial. How do we get to the trial?
Yeah,
and they made some decisions that maybe weren't the best for a 45-minute episode.
Yeah,
and they kind of just like
glossed over it.
Thank you, gloss over is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they definitely did.
Yeah,
and I don't think that the writers were thinking about it as a big deal. The focus is on the EMH was being insensitive, and not the EMH was actually telling the truth a little bit. You know,
I think they were trying to do both, and those things maybe.
Yeah, and
clashed.
it didn't really do it. You know, I mean, I Measure of a Man makes me cry. Like, it makes me have tears in my eyes. This, I did have a little tear moment, but it was when Seven was talking to her aunt.
Oh,
And it was not like when the whole crew is like telling nice stories about the doctor, which is when it should have been, you know, and also with the Seven and her aunt. That was very like when it was the moment when her aunt said, and this is actually a like potentially like neurodivergent moment, when her aunt was like, you would always make sure to tell me if the strawberries weren't ripe, and she says,
she's like, of course you would always let me know if those strawberries weren't ripe. It's supposed to be a very cute story,
and it's so sweet. It's so funny. Like, she's just making a joke, and Seven's like, oh, I'm sorry if I offended you. I shouldn't have called.
Yeah. She like can't take that tone of
because she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand that she's making conversation, she's joking, and she's like,
she's taking a little
showing
playful
affection
jab at her.
Yeah, and she's also showing her affection. And Seven doesn't read that, and that just like made Seven.
Yeah. I definitely noticed that.
Yeah, it made me like, I mean, thinking about it right now, I'm having it's very lovely, but like, I wish that I had those feelings when I was hearing all his friends say nice things about him.
Hey, question real quick. What episode is it where he becomes the singing on that planet and he decides to stay?
Oh, I forget.
Was that? I wonder if that was before or after this episode, because it's also late. But it's like,
it's before this episode.
Is it? Because then it's
before
like,
this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, they were gonna leave him on another planet to pursue happiness and fame. Like, if that doesn't scream thinking of someone, I mean, that more is like, I'm surprised that wasn't
virtuoso.
Evidence. I'm surprised that wasn't evidence. Like, we were gonna leave him on a planet to pursue a life,
be a singer, to like literally be a professional singer.
They
didn't even bring that up.
He fell in love with that episode. Like,
that episode is called Virtuoso.
Yeah,
it is season 6, episode 13.
So that's definitely before this.
Way before. It's a whole season before this.
I think, unfortunately, too, that's a great episode to talk about right now, because I think that's some of the problems with this episode, where we kind of have some of that emotional confusion with on the viewer side, is that I feel like a lot of storylines are like, hey, the EMH is an ass, and he gets knocked down a peg. And so they're kind of going for that here, where it's like he's being an ass with this story. And it's also just a really bad story. Like, the writing isn't exactly, it's very like, you know, pulp novel. And there's some of that where it's like, isn't the doctor an ass? Watch Tom give him, you know, some of it back at him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does conflict with what you're talking about. Kind of the revelation that like the doctor doesn't always feel like part of the family, or he feels other. So it's sort of just like there's a lot of things going on in this one.
I mean, even specifically like the thing with Tom literally went into his program without his consent and changed a bunch of shit to teach him a lesson, which is like, well, in a lot of ways, what his publisher did by putting out his novel without his consent. So like, Tom going in there to do that is Tom not really treating him like a person. I mean, I was so mad at Tom. I was like, fuck you, Tom. Fuck you, Tom. Like, you are just like, that was just such a childish thing to do.
And I don't think it would read that way if the episode was just trying to be more silly and fun.
Yeah.
You know, if it was more of a wacky Star Trek episode where it was like tag, you know, like this little warring holonovel, you know, like it could, or an episode where it's like no one's quite happy with the story, so people start going in and making changes. You know,
like
Harry's like,
it.
oh, I'm a hypochondriac. And then next time you see him, Harry's like super buff and everyone loves him. And he's always got like a woman, you know, like they could have taken a much more silly tone with it. And like I said, the episode is not the worst Star Trek episode I've ever seen by far. No. But it seemed like there were 3 good ideas in this episode that they were trying to cram in one. And each of them got sacrificed a little bit.
Yes. And from my perspective, there's a missed opportunity to really talk about oppression
or othered, like I said, which is kind of another thing.
which is a form of oppression.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, you could have. Again, like we've said this about previous episodes too. Like you had a chance to do a thing, but you didn't do the thing. And that's just, whatever. I do want to just share an observation that I had that I thought was funny. When we're introduced to the beginning of the holonovel and it's the doctor sitting at that desk with like the smoking jacket on. I don't know if you ever played the computer game Myst.
No, but I definitely know what that game is. My brother was very much into it and Keith loves it. Yeah.
Well, when you win the game, there's a guy sitting at a desk in like a smoking jacket writing. And he like turns around and he acknowledges you, and that's the end of the game.
Oh my gosh. Talk about a letdown.
And yeah, I mean you're really like, wait, what? And then you can just like walk around the world.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, it's weird.
I was
very obsessed with this game. I had a Myst notebook where I like wrote all of my like clues and stuff down. But like that was all I could think about was like, he's that guy at the end of Myst.
I read that apparently Robert Picardo kept the smoking jacket, and I think the one Tom
that
wore,
checks out,
because there's that scene where he's the author. I think that one was sold off, but I think Picardo kept his. Which also, like Robert Picardo, is such a great actor. I think he's my favorite.
I love him actor
in Voyager, and I think he probably had so much fun doing this, especially the scene where Tom rewrites his character. And he's this
so good.
It's so good. I love it. The 7 is like, it hurts when I move my arm, and he's like, well, then don't do that. Ha ha ha. Like so. I mean, that's this episode is really both episodes are fun just to see their actors. I mean,
yes,
the Measure of a Man is just a very talky episode. It's a very Star Trek episode, but just the acting is so great with everyone involved. And then this is fun in a completely different way to see people out of character.
I mean, again, that Riker scene where he like is looking, where he discovers the thing, and then he realizes that it's gonna be bad for his friend. Oh.
Yeah, like I'm proving my case, but I don't want to win.
And that scene has no dialogue. There's no dialogue in that scene at all, and it's him by himself. Oh, so good.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're talking about like so much being said without saying it, and that's another like. Picard with Data about the eyes, Riker like just checking on the screen, and we just see it in his face. Good face acting.
Oh no, I know.
Then I would even say again, like Guinan, her delivery of she's saying something, but she's not saying that point.
Whoopi Goldberg, like you're just a fucking treasure. You're a treasure. We love you. You're a fucking treasure.
And who's the JAG officer? Philippa
Lavoie.
Yeah, I love that name, by the way.
And we talked about this in the episode where we did a crossover, right? Philippa Lavoie is played by Amanda McBroom, who is also a songwriter who wrote the song "The Rose."
Oh yeah,
that very, very fucking famous song.
Yeah,
how awesome is that? She wrote "The Rose," you guys. I love her.
Yeah, if you heard it, you'd be like, "Oh, this song." Like, you know the song even if you don't think you do.
Oh, yeah.
But I was going to say another thing. It was like, what a great dialogue she and Picard have. Again, giving subtext and context without being like, with their whole thing with, obviously she was involved with the Stargazer.
Court martial.
You could tell they had a relationship, but because her legal duty of prosecuting him with a court martial after that whole thing.
Yeah.
The dialogue feels very natural. Their introduction to each other is wonderful.
Their chemistry is great.
But it's so, and you never know exactly what happened, but the dialogue they have gives you enough, and they just feel very real and natural.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also you just understand and you're somewhat invested in all the players. Where like you said in author, it's like now there's this random guy.
Yeah, and I don't fucking care about him. I don't care about him, and I don't care what he
Yeah.
thinks. Yeah, it's very interesting how like sort of a similar skeleton can be used in such a different way.
Larissa, I don't want to say we like dumped on this episode, but we just recorded 2 episodes, and I feel like in both of them we're just like meh, 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 meh. So
I mean,
I think we need to make sure our next one talk about. I don't want to say happy. What am I trying to say?
maybe we do another favorites,
Maybe, yeah.
or like we were gonna do episodes that make us cry.
Oh, that's happy.
But like from feelings,
From
you know,
feelings, good
like we
feelings.
could talk about like, you know, we haven't talked about Offspring yet.
Oh, that would make me cry. That's a good
Yeah.
episode.
It's a really good episode.
Either that
And
or
it's
we
kind
need to
of-
do
it's-
like each pick one of our personal like good friend stories.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll do
yeah.
something. We gotta, yeah.
I mean, and the thing is like we were just being critical of it because like we're comparing it to one of like pretty much the best episode that's ever existed of the franchise.
That, yeah.
You know, it's a high bar. Like Measure of a Man is excellent.
It's a good piece
it
of
is
Star Trek, and it's a good piece of writing, TV writing.
Yes, it's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it is an excellent piece of art. Like it is
Yeah.
very, very, very well done in every way. Like it is a high bar.
Yeah.
It's one of the best episodes of television, period.
True.
You know?
I would say that.
So yeah, I mean, it's okay to like to be critical when you're comparing something to something else that's so good. So I don't feel bad.
Fair enough.
I don't feel
Fair
bad
enough.
about it.
Okay.
I don't
I take
feel
it all
too bad
back.
about it.
Take it all back then.
And we got into some serious stuff, you know, like I mean, these are human rights episodes.
Yeah.
So like to be critical of an episode that's trying to talk about human rights but then doesn't really talk about it is okay.
Right, exactly.
I think
Not
that's
human rights,
fine.
just artist rights. Copyright. This is
It's
the
copyright.
This is the legendary Star Trek copyright episode.
law episode. Oh my God. The time that Star Trek tried to talk about human rights but ended up talking about intellectual property rights instead. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah, well, we'll have more fun Star Trek for you soon or something. I hope you're having a great summer. I hope people are vaccinated and seeing their families finally.
Yes,
I know.
enjoy. Have good friend moments.
Have
and
good
we'll
friend
catch you
moments.
later.
Yay!
Find us in the collective at intothewormhole.show, on Instagram at intothewormhole.podcast. Into the Wormhole is brought to you by We Own This Town.
I've always had like a little crush on Tuvok.
You like brooding
I
alcoholics and Damar and then an emotionally unavailable man.
Yep.
What does this say about you?
God, I don't fucking know. God, I don't fucking know. God, I don't fucking know.